back to the Now Morning Show on this Thursday morning. Now, the Inherited Blood Disorders Walkathon returns on Sunday, 31st July 2022. The walk is the Society for Inherited and Severe Blood Disorders' main fundraising event and the first time they're doing an in-person event since the COVID-19 pandemic. And joining me to talk about inherited blood disorders and the event that's coming up at the end of the month is pediatric hematologist Dr. Kevin Dindial and public relations officer at the Society, Kieran Blackman. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning, thanks for having us.
Now, Dr. Dindial, I'm going to begin with you first. Inherited blood disorders. What are those? How can we have treatment? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. All right, good morning, everyone. So inherited blood disorders, essentially in pediatric population, comprises a wide variety of different disorders. But I'll take it back to our Trinidad population and the Caribbean population in general. The most common inherited blood disorders would be sickle cell disease, which falls under the umbrella of hemoglobinopathies. So essentially, there's an abnormality in the hemoglobin that is in the red blood cell. And when there's abnormalities, it causes a lot of problems. So sickle cell disease is our #1 main problem. And the other issues that we have is thalassemia. So beta thalassemia, which is another hemoglobinopathy in which patients have very low blood counts and have to live on blood transfusions for life. And then there's bleeding disorders. So bleeding disorders, the most common type that we have in our population, and it's equivalent to around the globe, is hemophilia A and B, which mainly affect boys, and von Willebrand disease. So those are the three main types of bleeding disorders. We have other types of inherited blood disorders that are prevalent, but not as common as sickle cell disease and hemophilia.
Now, while you are in the pediatric setting, is it that parents will need to come if they suspect that their child have a blood disorder to get tested, or is this something that you pick up at birth?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So for sickle cell disease, ideally and gold standard globally, sickle cell disease is part of a newborn screening. So any child that is delivered in any country where that resource is available, sickle cell disease is picked up at birth. So those children will not present with what we call a crisis at a certain age. Unfortunately, in Trinidad, we don't have newborn screening just yet, but that is being actively pursued, and hopefully we can have that up and going in the next few months. So in Trinidad, our patients who have sickle cell disease, the most severe type, usually will present for the first time in what we call a sickle cell crisis. And from there, we start to work them up and make the diagnosis. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Blackman, I'm actually going to bring you in here because I know that you actually do have one of the disorders that doctor would have mentioned. How important do you think it is to draw awareness to these type of inherited blood disorders? And of course, if you're comfortable, you can share which one you have.
Yeah, well, I have sickle cell anemia, and I think it's gravely important to raise awareness, because what you find happening sometimes, the genes exist in our population, and sometimes people have children who may be born with a disorder, and when the children are still at a really young age, they may notice that the child may be in discomfort or the child is having some issue, right? And remember, babies can't speak. Right, and the grave amount of pain and discomfort that a child could be in with any one of these disorders, it could be very discomforting, right? And it could be very alarming for parents, right? And some of them are more difficult to pick up if you don't pick it up at birth, right? So it may be a little process to go through just to find out what it is the child has, you know?
Now, I know that the Society is hosting the Walkathon, of course, not just as a fundraising event, but also to build that awareness.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, we started this Walkathon maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, right? So every year, what we try to do, we make one lap around the savannah, because some of our patients can't make much more than that, because they may have disabilities and other conditions that prevent them from doing too much strenuous activity. So we make a lap around the savannah, right? And then we come back, we have breakfast, we gather, you know, socialize, have other activities, little entertainment and stuff, right? And all of these things just to raise awareness and let the public know about the different disorders they have. Sometimes we walk in groups, so we have little placeholders to allow people to know what groups the people belong to, whether sickle cell or hemophilia or thalassemia, right?
Now, the event is taking place on the 31st of July. What time does it begin? Where can people go to get more information?
Yeah, we usually begin officially around 6:30 in the morning opposite TGIF around the Savannah. Right? Information is available on our social media pages, mainly Facebook. Right? You can also purchase jerseys. Jerseys are purchasable online, so I have on mine underneath my jacket here.
Of course.
You know, so and this year our theme, every year we have a theme. This year our theme is connected through pain and united by blood. You know, because if it's one thing with all of these disorders, pain is a common feature, right? And one thing that we all share in common is pain. So we feel connected through that, and the blood is what really unites us and brings us together. We all suffer genetic conditions. We all need blood at times. So one thing the society does a lot as well is try to raise awareness of voluntary blood donation as well.
So I guess you guys would be excited about the Ministry of Health's new blood donation drive.
Yes, definitely. That's something we're in full support of, right? But we know it does take a lot of public awareness to allow people to understand the change that's taken place.
Of course. Yeah. Now, I'm going to bring it back to you, Doc, because I'm wondering, one thing that Mr. Blackman mentioned is that pain.
Yes.
And so people with these inherited disorders, is there a way that they can move forward to live life a bit more comfortably? Any more treatment that is available for them?
Yeah. So for sickle cell disease, as Kieran would know very well, that pain is one of your main issues, and it affects their daily quality of life. So things that, in terms of things that we could advise families and patients to do, is that we know that there's certain things that trigger pain. So dehydration. So we always tell them volumes of fluids to drink for the day, especially if it's adolescents and they're very active and they play sports. We know that changes in temperature, like cold temperature, trigger painful crises. So, you know, if they go to the beach, they go to the river, we always tell them keep warm, have towels, dry off when you finish, don't go when it's raining. And then moving on to the medical aspect, there are medications that we have most of our sickle cell anemia patients on. These are the patients that have the more severe type of disease. And we try to, there's a really groundbreaking treatment that all sickle cell patients are on now, and it's called hydroxyurea. So we try to put all our children with sickle cell anemia on hydroxyurea, and that has proven, you know, by many trials, clinical trials, that it improves not only your quality of life, but it also improves and preserves their organs. So sickle cell patients can live longer and healthier.
Now, I know that with the pandemic, you weren't able to have the event. And now that we're moving away and the numbers are decreasing, we have this connection. And of course, it links with the theme that you're talking about. Yes. How does it feel to now have this pandemic, well, now have the walkathon, in fact, after the pandemic and after these 2 years?
It feels really great. And one of the things is that during the pandemic, actually in the first year in 2020, we would have lost our founder, we would say matriarch of the organization, Dr. Waveney Charles, right? So this is the first time we can actually gather and meet in this type of setting since she died. So, you know, this is the first time we actually have the opportunity to come together, you know, really talk about it, even though we would have been meeting virtually all the time. You know, it's the first time we could really come together and do things like we used to do, like a family, in a family type setting for many years, you know. And normally she would have been there with us, walking with us, you know, talking with us, engaging in all of these different activities, you know. And she was one of the brainchilds of this event as well.
Now, while the walkathon is one of the main fundraising events, do you have a particular target that you're looking to achieve, a financial target?
Well, yeah, well, we hope that we could raise in the region of like 100,000 or even more, right? These funds help the society to operate for the years, but also in the past we've helped. I don't know if you remember, some years ago we had a patient named Jovi Mitchell who had beta thalassemia major, right? And he was denied by the Children's Life Fund, right? So we would have helped the family financially to get a bone marrow transplant. So he's actually finally gotten through his bone marrow transplant, so it's been successful. He's still in Italy, right? But he should return home sometime soon. So we're looking forward to seeing him sometime soon and gathering with him in settings like this in the future as well, right? So the funds really do go to useful use, right? We do have another patient we would like to help as well, right? And there are other patients who suffer other conditions that from time to time we reach out and we support. We help thalassemia patients, even though they don't need pumps anymore because they now have oral medication. They used to need pumps for iron chelation. Right, so things like that, the society helps and supports patients with. Of
course. And for the people who can't make it to the walkathon, but they want to donate, is there a donation aspect?
Yes, if you go to our registration page or the page where you purchase your jerseys, you could either make a donation online as well. Right, so you could by purchasing the jersey, you also make a contribution to us, right? But if you don't want the jersey, you could just make the contribution online as well. So all that information is available to the top of our Facebook page. We pinned it to the top, so
people know how to donate. Yeah. And just remind us of the Facebook page that we can go to get more info.
It's at SISBDTT, right? So at SISBDTT. Right?
SISBDTT.
Yeah. So that's for both Instagram and Facebook.
Of course. And quickly, Dr. Dindyal, any words of advice for people who are listening right now and they may have one of those inherited blood disorders?
Yeah. No. So I just want to say that we continue to work with you all and the family, because not only the patient is affected, the family is affected, and there are lots of things that me and the team at Eric Williams and nationally are trying to work on in terms of lab services and resources to help improve monitoring these patients, while particularly on hydroxyurea, and improving detection and surveillance screening. And as Kieran mentioned, there's life-saving procedures for certain populations, such as bone marrow transplant and gene therapy now. And we're engaging in conversations with the authorities to help a more streamlined process to help funding and get access to these type of care that is available in other countries. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Dindyal, Mr. Blackman, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I hope that your event is a success. Maybe you'll see one of us down there, because it does sound like a treat, so maybe we can come and we can support and, of course, help you to raise awareness about what, inherited blood disorders are. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to having you, and you could come and have breakfast with us.
Yes. So I got a special invite, but then I'm there.
Yes.
That's all I need to hear. And that was pediatric hematologist Dr. Kevin Dindyal and public relations officer at the Society, Mr. Kieran Blackman, just of course talking about inherited blood disorders and how we can be a part of their walkathon that's happening on the 31st of July. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. Stay with us.